What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team Career Mode, and we are here for round number 6 of Season 6 of our Jaguar Racing career. We're going to be at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Imola, and I'm looking forward to this one. You know, in years gone by, these races have typically gone quite well for me. We usually get somewhat lucky on strategy, I've found, and usually we're able to ride it home to a decent points finish. That's what we've done in years gone by in Imola, but whether that's going to be the case this time around, I'm not sure. We had a DNF in the previous race in Miami. We were on course to maybe win it, but certainly finish in the podium positions, but unfortunately the MGUH was the culprit of our mechanical failure that happened there, but no other components to replace at this time, so we should be able to go on the components that we've got enabled at the moment. Now, Charles Leclerc currently leads the World Championship by 21 points to George Russell. As a result of my DNF in the last race as well, we've fallen behind Red Bull in the constructors' standings by 1 point, and I am currently 57 points off the top spot in the championship. So we're going to need a good string of races coming up to have any chance of getting back into the championship fight. Fortunately, with Imola coming up, you know, this is a race that typically goes pretty decently for me. Monaco as well is a circuit that I like and tend to do well at. We've got Spain, which is one that I've done well at in the years gone by as well. Canada, another great track. Austria and the Great Britain. You know, all of these races. No Hungary on the calendar this year, but no Austria either, actually, I've just remembered. So, yeah, actually missing a few races that typically do go quite well for me. So we need to maximise our performance during this phase of the season now, basically, if we don't want to fall victim to being caught out by some races that I'm not quite as good at. You know, think back to last season where the races didn't go so well for me. Was races like in Zandvoort and in Qatar in particular. Those two were the races where I just looked fiercely uncompetitive and completely out of the running for the victory and even really to score points. So yeah, we're going to have to make sure that going into those races we've got a somewhat healthy lead on the championship to make sure that we don't lose out when it comes to the end of the season in races like Portugal and Abu Dhabi and places like that. So anyway, getting into the race weekend, it appears it is actually going to be raining during the race once again. It looks like it's going to be a wet to dry, which in most years around Imola, it's actually a wet to dry, I've found. In a lot of seasons that we've done of this My Team Career Mode, it feels like we've started on the wet, and what usually ends up happening is that the AI will box for a second set of maybe intermediates or something like that, and then they'll usually try and ride those intermediates to the end of the race. And my strategy often has been take one set of intermediates until it's dry enough to go onto the dry tyres, and then try and maximise my pace at the end. Last year, if I remember correctly, we managed to make our way through and finish in P5, having been, you know, outside of the points 2 laps before the end of the race. We managed to cut our way through the field quite efficiently. So hopefully we'll be able to do that again here in this year's Grand Prix, if that proves to be the optimum strategy. But we will see whether that seems to be the case or not. We're P3 in practice, had pretty good pace, and one thing I noted that I really enjoyed in this practice session was that the car felt incredibly stable. Obviously, if you've been keeping up with the series, you'll know that I've been having a few issues with setups recently. I've kind of been trying to change over a few of my setups because I recently realized that most of them were quite outdated by this point. So we're, yes, updating the setups to try and be better for the races that are coming up. And yeah, Imola is one of the places where I've kind of changed the setup concept quite radically, and I'm enjoying it a lot more. Like I said, the setup just feels immensely more stable, and as a result, it's allowing me to extract quite a lot of lap time from my performance, which means that we were P1 at one point during that session, ended up falling behind Alex Albon, who went faster, and as we round the final corner, we're not going to improve on this lap, but that initial lap I did, both of course were on a soft compound tyre, fresh set, so we've used 2 sets of tyres here, but yeah, we managed to go P3 nonetheless, and yeah, I was quite happy with that. You know, for a first flying lap to only be 1/10 off the pace is not bad. Yuki Tsunoda, actually, the driver who went fastest on this occasion. And, well, quite a few surprises that have been knocked out here in Q1. Lando Norris, gone. Max Verstappen, the race winner in Miami, of course, is now out in Q1. He joins both the AlphaTauris of Stroll and De Vries and also the Haas of Théo Pourchaire and the Alpine of Esteban Ocon. George Russell narrowly making it through to Q2 for the first time in quite a while, actually. He got knocked out in Q1 in both Miami and Baku, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, we will see what we can do now as we make our way into Q2. Whether we can do a good lap here. It's going to be a 1:12.6. That's on a used set of soft compound tyres, so I'm actually very happy with that, because if we can improve from that, then we should be quite comfortably able to contend for P1 here. And you can see that as we make our way into the final few corners, we're up by about a tenth or so. Once again, it's Russell and Tsunoda right up here at the sharp end. Tsunoda having an absolutely amazing qualifying. We did a 1:12.5 this time, and that is good enough to put us in P1 for Q2. So we're through to Q3 quite comfortably, and now we'll see if we can get through and hopefully challenge for pole position. Charles Leclerc is out in Q2 here. 1:13.2 for him. He was about a tenth off of making it through. So yeah, he actually loses out to Jahan Deruvala, of all people, making it through to Q3 for what I believe is the first time. And something I didn't initially notice that you might have already clocked is that in the top 10 making it through to Q3, there are 10 different teams. Piastri, Leclerc, Sargent, Fittipaldi, Perez and Zhou have all been eliminated, but there is the Ferrari of Deruvala, the McLaren of Magnussen, the Haas of Doohan, the Williams of Lawson, the Mercedes of Albon, the Alpine of Gasly, the Aston Martin of Hauger, the Alfa Romeo of Tsunoda, the Red Bull of Russell and the Jaguar of myself, all making it through to Q3. I don't know if I've ever seen that before, so that was quite amazing to me, actually, that we managed to have 10 different teams in the top 10, and well, literally the only team that won't be competing to get pole position here in this final part of qualifying is AlphaTauri, who were both knocked out in Q1. So yeah, we make our way onto final qualifying. We do a very scruffy lap on a used set of tyres, only a 1:13.2, not very good at all. Hopefully we can improve on that by quite a significant margin in Q3. We've been looking good to, if we can maximise our potential, probably get about a 1:12.3, I reckon, is probably the best lap time that we can get here, but we're not really improving quite that much by the looks of things. It's a 1:13.2 is our fastest lap at the moment. We're only 4/10 up on that. Realistically, I feel like we could have improved by about a second, but as we round the final corner, we're only improving by about 5 or 6 tenths. As we come on the run to the line, it's going to be a little under 6 tenths. 1:12.6 is the lap time we do, and that is not going to be good enough for pole position. That is only P4 for us, and we're going to have work to do in the Grand Prix tomorrow now.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top three: Russell, Doohan and Alex Albon. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
Jack bloody Doohan, of course. He's done it again. P2 in the Haas. I don't know how he does it. So it's Russell from Doohan from Albon is the top three, myself and P4. But yeah, outstanding performance from Doohan. We'll see if he can convert that into a podium as we get into the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix.
Welcome once again to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo and Dino Ferrari. The clue is in the name. This is very much Ferrari home turf, and the locals will be out in force today to support their team in what we hope will be a magnificent spectacle of motorsport. On then to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Unlike most Formula One tracks, Imola is driven anti-clockwise and offers our drivers today just over 3 miles of glistening wet tarmac to negotiate. It's made up of a roughly equal split of 9 right-hand turns and 10 left-hand. Watch the drivers on the way into turn 16. Managing their speed there will be crucial, with the rain only adding to the difficulty of that downhill braking section, which then, of course, leads them into the track's longest straight, though no DRS there today, of course. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and Jack Doohan completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Albon, Robinson, Hauger, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Deruvala, Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Leclerc, Sargent, Fittipaldi, Perez, Ocon, Verstappen, Stroll, Teo Pourchaire, Norris, De Vries and Zhou Guanyu. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. Anthony Davidson joins us in commentary for this one, and the main focus is right in front of us. It's a wet race. How does that affect your planning as a driver?
It is a touch damp, isn't it? Well, as a driver, there are three big things to worry about when racing in these kind of conditions: standing water, tyre temperature and visibility. And judging distance to the cars around you is really tricky when you're driving through the vast amounts of spray that these wet weather Pirelli tyres kick up.
Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
Well, the race has delivered what it promised. It is going to be a wet one, at least to start, but there is a suggestion that it's going to go dry at some point. So we'll see what the strategy determines is going to be best for us here. If it seems like we maybe would be better off finishing on the intermediates this time, I probably won't switch because I feel a bit more confident in the setup that we're running. Yes, the tyres will be overheating a little bit, but it should realistically be the same for everyone else. I know in practice it very rarely works like that, but if it seems like around the midpoint of the race it's time to go on to the slicks, we'll probably do that instead. So yeah, we're really just going to have to make sure that we keep one ear to the ground on the weather conditions to make sure that we can optimize the strategy effectively for whatever gets thrown our way. But in any case, we'll see what we can do from P4 on the grid as the lights come on and the lights go out very quick this time. And we've had a good getaway compared to Alex Albon here. George Russell slow away from the line, and it's going to be Jack Doohan, my former teammate, leading the charge on the way down to turn 1. We're going to see if we can get ahead of the Red Bull driver of George Russell and try and go around the outside of Doohan as well, but we overshoot the corner, and not only Doohan but also maybe Russell is going to go through as well. Wheel to wheel at the moment with the Red Bull driver, who is currently locked in a championship fight with my teammate. For the sake of our team's chances of winning the championship, it is very important that I get ahead of George Russell there, and you can see we squeeze him out on the exit of the chicane and make our way up into P2 and get ahead of George Russell. But Jack Doohan, meanwhile, has managed to gap us by 1.5 seconds out in front, and so right now he has a chance to do something quite special. He has a chance to get his first win since his debut almost 2 years ago now, and get Haas's first win since Kevin Magnussen in season 2. It was that Kevin Magnussen managed to do that. Interestingly, both of those events that happened, Jack Doohan's first win in season 4 and Kevin Magnussen's win for Haas in season 2, were both at the French Grand Prix. So that would be interesting if Jack Doohan is able to win this one. But I am closing him down quite dramatically through this next part of the lap. You can see I gained on him by about 2 or 3 tenths of a second through that sector. So if we can keep up that level of performance over the course of a whole lap, then we have a good chance of hopefully closing down Jack Doohan and challenging him for the lead. You know, that Haas is not necessarily the fastest car on the grid, and Jack Doohan, at least when he was on my team, didn't always prove himself to be the most reliable and consistent driver, especially when conditions were tricky. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether he can do anything. But I mean, if I keep making mistakes like this, having poor runs through the corners, getting all mixed up over the curbs, Jack Doohan is probably going to have an easier time of things than perhaps you would have thought otherwise. George Russell putting a bit of pressure on me there, and Jack Doohan has now gapped me by about a second over what it was beforehand. So now we are going to have a bit more work to do as we make our way now onto lap 3. You can see that the gap has come down by about half a tenth of a second. So when I'm driving well and I'm driving consistently, I am faster than Jack Doohan here, but I am also, it seems, a bit more mistake prone perhaps, but I am nonetheless reeling him in slowly but surely through Agua Minerale. Bloody hell, that is a hard corner name to say. I guess Agua Minerale is basically everywhere on the circuit with how wet it is right now. But yeah, we're closing down a bit through there, and as we make our way onto lap 5, you can see we are now right on the back of Jack Doohan. No DRS, of course, and so we're going to have to do this very legitimately, as it were. We're going to have to do it without any assistance from anything else and just see if we can get ahead of him. But we make a bit of a mistake out of the final corner, go over the track, which I think is a little bit harsh because I definitely didn't gain anything from that. And now we are going to be coming under pressure from George Russell on the run down to turn 1 instead. I was hoping I'd be able to put pressure on my former teammate. Instead it will be me being pressured by George Russell. into turn 1. You know, he gets a little bit further ahead of me there, but on the run through the corner, he almost goes into the side of me. Fortunately, we don't get any damage there. I don't think George Russell did either, and we just about managed to hold on to P2. But basically, all the hard work I'd done over the last few laps to close down Jack Doohan has been undone, and we're going to have to do it again and try and catch up to Jack Doohan as quickly as we possibly can. So we have a best chance of overtaking him. I think once it goes dry, I think the chances of me getting past him are going to only decrease. But as we make our way onto lap 9, you can see that I am right on the back of my former teammate now, burning that battery, and we're going to move to the inside. He defends to the inside, so we switch to the outside, and we go round the outside of Jack Doohan. He has to brake very early to make the corner because of how tight he was defending to the inside, and that allowed me to sweep round the outside of him and make my way up into P1. As we make our way onto lap 13 now, you can see that George Russell is 2.2 seconds down on me. Jack Doohan has capitulated a little bit, and he is now 5 seconds down on me in P4. Alex Albon's got ahead of him as well. So, yeah, not only is his chance of getting a race win probably slipping away from him a little bit, but his chance of getting a podium might be slipping away. And with that, Haas's chance of getting a first win since that French Grand Prix back in 2024 may just have to wait a little bit longer, I think, because we are holding on to P1 very nicely. Our pace compared to George Russell as well is pretty constant. So as long as we can be consistent on these tyres and you know, not make too many mistakes, I think we probably have this one in the bag now, I would say. As long as our pace when it goes dry is the same as what it is in the wet. You can see make our way onto lap 16. He has caught us a little bit. They're saying that the rain is not too much longer now, and yeah, the dry track is on its way, and with that we are probably going to try and stay out on these intermediates for a bit longer. The intermediates can do 27 laps around here supposedly, and my tyre wear was about average, so yeah, I think that there is a very good chance that, you know, these guys starting to pit now as we make our way past the pit lane. I think that this will prove to be a mistake for the likes of George Russell and Alex Albon, because they will be, you know, quite far down compared to me. If the dry line is coming in soon, you know, and I pit onto the dry tyres, they're probably going to have to pit onto dries as well, right? So yeah, I could potentially have a significant advantage over everyone else. Meanwhile, if you have a look at the timing tower, Théo Pourchaire has stayed out, and he's made his way up into P2, so maybe Haas have a trick up their sleeve yet. However, Charles Leclerc, he has suffered a mechanical failure here. I'm just glad it's not me this time, but his streak of finishing on the podium in every race, it was probably going to come to an end anyway. It's definitely come to an end now. So it is myself from Pourchaire, from Russell, and a VSC has been deployed due to Leclerc's DNF here. So looking at the track and the fact that they said it was about to go dry, and you're going to see in a second when I asked them about the weather conditions and the tyre strategy, they actually say that the dries will have quite similar pace to the intermediates, and so I've decided with the VSC, now is the time to come in for a set of dry tyres, and you know, we won't lose out quite as much as we would have done if we had not pitted, because there is a VSC which is causing everyone to drive a bit slower than they usually would. It is a bit of a longer pit lane here in Imola, of course, and it doesn't help that, as you're about to see, the VSC is ending as I'm halfway through the pit, so I've not gained quite as much as I probably could have from the VSC if it had stayed out for the entire time. But nonetheless, I'm almost certainly going to be leading the race here. I think Pourchaire has come in for a set of dries as well. The DRS has been enabled, and you can see that I am just about going to be ahead of George Russell here, but the gap is only going to be about a second or so at the moment. But of course, I'm on the dry tyres, and he is not even pitted for dries yet, so I should be about 20 seconds ahead of these guys. However, that might not happen now, because the safety car is out, and so it is going to be a pretty straight fight between myself and Russell, I reckon now. This is why you may remember that Jack Doohan was leading the race earlier. Now he will not even be finishing the race. It has gone from bad to worse to this is the worst race of my life for Jack Doohan. So yeah, he is going to be screwed. And in doing so, he's also cost his teammate P2 as well. Pourchaire does come out in P3 eventually after his pit stop. However, he's also on the hard tyres, so I guess Haas just seem to really not want to score good points here today at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix as we go racing once again on lap 23. Yeah, it's kind of screwed his teammate over twofold, because he would have been quite comfortably ahead of everyone else had it not been for that safety car coming out in the first place. But also he lost position to Russell anyway as a result of it. So George Russell makes his way up the inside of me as we go through that chicane, and George Russell is going to take the lead of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, and we are in the mud now as far as this race is concerned. If it hadn't been for that safety car, I would have had a 25-second lead over Théo Pourchaire, and maybe not over Théo Pourchaire, but certainly over... No, I think even over Théo Pourchaire I would have had a 25-second lead. So I would have been leading this race by, you know, a margin that would have allowed me to lose 2 seconds a lap to the cars behind and still probably win the race. And now I'm going to have to actually have a straight fight with George Russell for the victory. Over the course of the few laps after he'd overtaken me, I did successfully manage to hold position. Meanwhile, you may notice a bizarre name up in P4. Nick de Vries is legitimately running in P4 right now. I think this would be the first point he's ever scored in this series. I might be wrong about that, but it certainly doesn't seem like he's scored them for a very long time. He's been at AlphaTauri. This is his 6th season with the team now, and he's on for a P4 finish at the moment. We are on for a P1 finish because we're going to try and go for a move around the outside of George Russell. He defended to the inside, much like Jack Doohan did when I overtook him 20 laps ago, and George Russell couldn't help but do the exact same thing that Jack Doohan did then. Tightened it up to the inside, and that cost him quite a lot of time to me that he had to spend the next 2 laps trying to make up. But he is going to go for a move up the inside into turn 1, a bit of a half-hearted move from George Russell there. I think he knew that it wasn't going to work out for him. We make our way towards the end of lap 30, and George Russell is still right here with me, so with that DRS he's going to be a threat into turn 1 pretty much every corner for the remainder of the race. Going up the inside, once again we defend to the outside because it gives us that run round the outside, and George Russell has to sit back and watch as I go through the corner before he can make his way through the corner as well. Otherwise we're going to have some kind of accident, which, you know, the AI, of all the corners on the F1 calendar, turn 1 at Imola is one of the corners they are most prone to having an accident at. This time into lap 32, George Russell goes around the outside, so I just get a bit crafty and squeeze him out, you know, why not? As we make our way to the replay camera now, you can see that George Russell definitely is not going to give up there, though. You know, the end of the lap, he's going to feel like he should get this victory because his strategy worked out quite nicely for him. But the strategy I was on kind of saved the day for me. If I'd have boxed initially under those intermediate tyres and then gone on to another set of inters and then switched to the mediums under the VSC, I would have been completely screwed. George Russell now going for a run on the way down to Agua Minerale. He went off the track momentarily there. We make a bit of contact, and as I exit the corner, I've got the better traction, and so George Russell is still going to have to settle for P2, and he is running out of corners to get this move done. He's either going to have to get me into one of the Ravazzas, or he's going to have to overtake me on the line now. Those are the only places where George Russell can overtake. He's not going to be quite close enough to do it into Ravazza 1. Ravazza 2 is just not an overtaking corner. And as we make our way through the final corner, all we've got to do now is hope that we had good traction on the exit of the corner. It seems like that has happened, and we're going to cross the line to take P1 in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. It's our first win at this circuit, and I am very, very pleased with that. As Russell leading me home with Albon in P3, but your driver of the day today is Nick de Vries, from exiting in Q1 to making his way into P4. What a drive for the Dutchman.
And that's it then for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. And what a sensational victory they've managed to pull off here. Tell me, Anne, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Welcome then to the podium, our top 3 drivers. What a great effort from them today in a very difficult race.
Yep, it was indeed a rather tricky race. A wet to dry, it's never easy. It's all about the strategy. But because every race at Imola is exactly the same in my experience, I was able to use my experience of how the races have gone historically to determine what the best strategy was going to be here today. And ultimately, I think that was what saved my race a little bit and allowed me to continue to contend for that win with George Russell, and we've come out victorious. It is Russell P2 and Albon takes P3.
So let's review the drivers' standings. Despite the best efforts of our championship leader, that lead has taken a bit of a knock today. So, Anthony Davidson, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
I have to give it to Robinson.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. The owner drivers team moved to the top of the table. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend for them as they fight their way towards the top. I'm equal parts exhausted and elated with this weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for the next one.
So, Charles Leclerc does keep a narrow lead on the championship despite that DNF. He's 2 points ahead of George Russell. My victory here today has enabled us to get back past the Red Bulls because Sergio Perez failed to score. And so we've now gone 5 points ahead of Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship. And something particularly interesting about that race that once again you may not have noticed, but feel free to rewind the video and have a look at the final race result. Not only in qualifying was it 10 different cars in the top 10, but it was also 10 different cars in the top 10 for the race as well, which I thought was quite interesting. Yeah, 10 different teams making their way into the points in this race. Interestingly, however, it wasn't AlphaTauri. Obviously, you might remember Nick de Vries got that P4, so it was actually Aston Martin as Dennis Hauger dropped out of the top 10 over the course of that race. Arguably, if there was any team that might have been able to score a double points finish here today, it was going to be either Aston Martin, who I believe finished 11th and 13th, or Ferrari, because I believe de Ruyveler came 12th. But it was maybe Haas were looking most likely up until that DNF for Jack Doohan, because Théo Pourchaire was on a great strategy. Jack Doohan was obviously running in the top 5 anyway. It really looked like Haas could have been the strongest team here this weekend if they hadn't capitulated over the course of the race weekend. Théo Pourchaire did end up still managing to score a few points, but yeah, it means that every team is now on the board. I don't know about every driver. Obviously, I think Lance Stroll and maybe Zhou Guanyu as well have failed to score points yet this season, but basically everybody else now I think has finished in the points in at least some capacity. So yeah, it is a really interesting season, a very competitive season, with all the cars being as close together as they are in the performance index. It means that really it's a kind of any given Sunday type scenario at the moment, where if you're the fastest driver on track on that day, you're likely to have a fairly good result. You know, obviously it's down a little bit to things like facilities as well in the team, and how well you can, your drivers can do based on the sort of resources they're being given. But mostly it's just down straight up to driver skill at the moment, and it seems like I am one of the most skilled drivers on the track, which is good for me, because it means that I am closing that gap in the Drivers' Championship. Obviously, I have now on race 6 become the first repeat winner of this season as well, which is always nice. We've had Russell, we've had Leclerc, we've had Perez, we've had myself. And we've had Verstappen, and those are the 5 people who've won races this season. I'm the first one to win 2. I wonder who the next one will be, and I wonder whether I'll be the first one to win 3 races as well. I certainly wouldn't count myself out of the conversation, because the next race is going to be the Monaco Grand Prix, and historically that's been a race that's gone very well for me. That was the sort of catalyst for the recovery in my championship winning season last season. You might remember I also had a fairly difficult start to the season last year as well, and as a result of winning in Monaco, it kind of gave me a bit of a boost, and I was able to turn things around and ended up winning the championship. But that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.